This is Live Life Love. This is a disclaimer that everything you are to hear in this podcast is my own opinion, and it is up to the listener's discretion whether or not they follow the advice that I give. Hello, and welcome to the Live Life Love podcast. If you're new to the podcast, this podcast is all about living a life you love and living your life full of love. So today, I am going to be talking about how sometimes comfort can be the enemy of progress and toxic self-care. You might be wondering, toxic self-care, what exactly is toxic self-care? I first want to say that taking care of yourself is absolutely important, but there is a point in which, too much of anything is bad, so too much self-care becomes a bad thing. And this is when it can become essentially toxic self-care, which I will define as a lack of self-discipline or not holding yourself accountable and making up kind of an excuse or saying, oh, but I just need some self-care. And this is absolutely, like I said earlier, not me writing off self-care. You can absolutely enjoy taking care of yourself and set aside time to take care of yourself, but I do want to bring awareness to a more common, phenomenon that I have been seeing more recently. And often, toxic self-care is in some way tied to consumerism. So I will talk a little bit about that as well. So I want to start with that first phrase that I said, and this has become a little bit of my own mantra lately, and that is comfort is the enemy of progress. And this doesn't mean you have to make your life super, super hard to make progress in your life or anything like that. But oftentimes, that fight that you might feel when you don't want to do something, or where you feel like the world is kind of against you and you can't really pick yourself up and pursue whatever it is you want to pursue, you're usually making some kind of excuse in the realm of comfort. And I think the US, especially as a US citizen, I think, and this doesn't mean it's exclusive to the US. I know I have listeners in other countries, but I have seen this kind of culture of comfort in the US where comfort is idealized. People aren't really pushed to go outside of their comfort zone a lot or, just do whatever's comfortable. But ultimately, that is a hindrance to progress because a lot of the most progress that you are going to have in your life is when you actually take that step to try something new, get out of your comfort zone, learn about people who are different than you, or experience something completely new. Because oftentimes, accomplishing great things does not come from a place of, being comfortable or sitting at home, doing what you always do, getting lost in those familiar patterns, scrolling on your phone, watching TV, whatever you find is comfortable. And I know this phrase is it can be a little bit hard to take in and process that comfort can be the enemy of progress. But ultimately, when you make the realization that, comfort can be the enemy of progress, you realize how much that comfort or doing the same thing or however you might be defining it is getting in the way of you becoming your very best self. And comfort, I'm going to say, has its place in progress. Like, there are some things that you'll want to be comforted in. You'll need some kind of support, things like that. But essentially, comfort can become the enemy. Often doing hard things or doing things that are difficult is not easy, whether that is confronting feelings or confronting somebody. We're very anti-confrontational as a culture right now. And so I think that actually being able to engage people sometimes, or call people out, or speak up for what you believe in, or whatever, it might feel uncomfortable, and that is okay. Doing uncomfortable things is good and is a way to grow and facilitate change in the world and create progress in your own self journey and in your own self development, because there can be times even when, what is comfortable is not always what is true either. You can grow up in an environment that might drill something into you that you later on realize is not aligned with who you are or who you believe yourself to be, or is holding yourself back from all of the amazing, wonderful things that you can do. And I also think when relationships get hard, often people bail out. That's not in reference to abusive situations. Obviously, if you are in an abusive situation, please remove yourself from that abusive situation. But there are times when, relationships get hard where you have to buckle down and kind of live in that discomfort and go through that discomfort with someone else to grow yourself and, really help the world become a better place. And, this addiction, or not, I won't say addiction, but this fallback of comfort, whether that's, I don't feel like going to the gym today, so I'm not going to go to the gym today, or I'm going to eat this tub of ice cream because I'm on my period and I really want ice cream. And, maybe there's a time for that, but if you're doing that every single day of your period, that is kind of a sign that you've crossed into that comfort being the enemy of your progress and being the opposite of self-discipline and holding yourself to a higher standard and accountable to the goals that you set, the person that you set out to be, the values and principles that you live by. And it's important that you know whatever values and principles that you do have and what is important to you so that you can uphold those. And the times to be uncomfortable. And I will say there is a difference between, having a bad gut feeling or feeling like something is not right. Like, that kind of discomfort is a bad discomfort, but a more like stepping out of your comfort zone is more what I mean when I say discomfort. And you can see how this kind of falls into that idea of toxic self-care. And I view toxic self-care as kind of the internet's enablement of comfort and things and items or activities that you need to engage in order to take care of yourself, essentially. Honestly, self-care should more look like, or, can look like making yourself a healthy meal, getting out of bed, going for a walk, and, or, taking a rest day. It can look like that. Or if you have been working really hard, taking a break and watching a movie. But you really need to ask yourself, do I actually deserve this. And that's not to be super hard on yourself or be super self-hateful or anything like that, but more of a place of, do I need to treat myself? Like, what am I treating myself to? Like, what did I actually accomplish that I should be celebrating? Or am I just treating myself to treat myself? And there's like less of a reason. And yes, that's okay occasionally, but if it's repeated, that's when it becomes to start falling into that toxic self-care place. And I think influencers, you see them buying all these products that they use to take care of themselves, whether that's face masks or special body rubs or just throwing these elaborate self-care rituals. And I don't think that's always realistic for everyone, nor do I think essentially unhealthy habits or breaking healthy habits should be viewed as a form of self-care, because ultimately when you're in a really bad place, the self-care of laying in bed for another hour, or maybe not an hour, that's reasonable, I would say, but laying in bed for 5 hours and watching TV all day isn't going to make you feel better. Oftentimes, it's going to make you feel worse because you're not actually taking care of yourself. You're just avoiding the discomforts of life. And, like I said, all ties into consumerism with all the products that are pushed in order to take care of yourself. Taking care of yourself doesn't have to be hard. I think healthy self-care looks like things like going for a walk or talking to a friend or reading a book. Just very simple tasks that are very fulfilling and might serve some kind of service or enrichment to some part of your life, whether that's physical, emotional, relationship, I don't know if that's a word, but I just made it up, spiritual, kind of those core life principles. Self-care should enrich one of those in some way. This can occasionally look like a small amount of TV or something like that if you have been working really hard and that is something that you need. So I hope you have kind of a better idea of what toxic self-care can look like and how comfort can be the enemy of progress. And like I said earlier, it is important in order to know how to step out of your comfort zone and start making yourself uncomfortable is to have a very strong set of principles and values that you live by and honor in your daily life. And if you listen to my podcast, you know that I often have some kind of activity for my listeners to help them actually apply whatever I am talking about. And so this one is actually going to be very simple. All you're going to do is write down on a piece of paper 1 through 10 and write down your top 10 highest values and principles. And you might be like, 10, that's a pretty big number. I don't even know if I can come up with 10 things. In which I encourage you to, just do a quick Google search of values or common values and principles, just so you can have an idea of what these might look like, because there are a ton of them out there. And, some might be less important, but maybe down at number 10, but those are still an important part of who you are and who you want to be and how you want to live your life and how you want to step out and be perceived by others and make change on the world around you. But I want to thank everybody for listening, and I will talk to you next Tuesday. Thank you so much for listening to the Live Life Love podcast. As always, please share this episode with your friends and family. Follow the podcast on Instagram at livelifelovepod or visit the website livelifelovepodcast.com. You can find past episodes wherever you like to listen, and new episodes come out every Tuesday. Have a great day.